Let's focus distance. So let's look at the focus distance. Okay, so the closest focusing distance is round like. So the closest focusing distance. The closest focusing distance on both of the camera are basically the same. Around 60 centimeters will be the closest. The closest focusing distance is pretty much the same on the closest focusing distance are pretty much the same on both of the camera. The closest focusing distance is pretty much the same on both of the camera. It's around 60 centimeters. If you go below 60 centimeters, if you go below 60 centimeters, the Mission 1 Pro, yeah, where is it? But the Mission 1 Pro has a bigger sensor, shallower depth of field, shallower depth of field. So the Mission 1 Pro will look slightly blurrier. So the Mission 1 Pro will look slightly blurrier at. So the Mission 1 Pro will look slightly blurrier under 60 centimeters. Yep. Correct. Put this over here. Before. So let's test the dynamic range. Dynamic range test time. The dynamic range test time at color flat. Using color flat color profile. With color flat color profile shooting 4K. Using color flat profile. Using color flat color profile on both of the cameras shooting 4K 30 frames per second. Overexposed one stop looks overexposed one stop looks over one stop overexposed one stop the GoPro 12 is a little bit clipping. Overexposed one stop GoPro 12 is already clipping the image. Overexposed two stop the Mission 1 Pro will also clip the highlight. And this is overexposed 3 stop just for fun. And this is shooting overexposed 3 stop is just for fun. Also share with you guys overexposed 3 stop. Also show you guys the overexposed 3 stops just for fun. Also show you guys overexposed 3 stop. Also show you guys overexposed 3 stop just for fun. So underexposed 1 stop looks pretty good. Underexposed 2 stop, nothing has. Underexposed 2 stop, nothing crazy happened. Underexposed 3 stop. The GoPro 12 shadow part is a little bit noisy. The GoPro 12 shadow part will be a little bit noisy. But you can easily clean it up. But you can easily clean it up with some noise. But you can easily clean it up with some. But you can easily clean it up with some basic noise reduction. But under 4 stop. Under 4 stop. But under 4 stop, the GoPro 12 is. But under 4 stop, the GoPro. But under 4 stop, the GoPro shadow part is already. But under 4 stop, the GoPro shadow part is just. But under 4 stop, the GoPro shadow part just fall apart. under 5 stop, under 5 stop, under 5 stop, the Mission 1 Pro start to have some blocky shadow. Under 5 stop, the Mission 1 Pro start to have some blocky shadow artifact. And also some magenta color shift in the shadow part on the Mission 1 Pro. Yep. Okay, so next the only changes will be the resolution. The only changes will be the resolution at 8K on the Mission 1 Pro, 5.3K on the GoPro 12. You can see some dramatically different image quality. You can see some dramatically you can see some dramatically change on the image. You can see some dramatically change on the image using max out resolution. So under 5 stop, 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 both of the camera are basically totally under 5 stop. Under 5 stop, both of the camera are totally unusable. Under 4 stop, pretty much. Under 4 stop, under 4 stops, under 4 stops still unusable. Under 3 stops still unusable. Under 2 stop, under 2 stop, under 2 stop is under 2 stop is slightly better. Under 2 stop is kind of usable if you use some noise. Under 2 stop is under 2 stop are kind of usable under 2-stop is kind of usable on both of the camera if you turn on slight. Under 2-stop, both of the camera are stop. Under 2-stop, both of the camera are under 2-stop. Under 2-stop, jeez. Under 2-stop, both of the camera are kind of usable. With some slightly, after applying a little bit noise reduction in post, after applying some noise reduction in post. Minus one stop looks pretty good on both of the camera. Minus one stop looks pretty good on both of the camera without any noise reduction. So 0 EV normal. So this is 0 EV basic. So this is 0 EV basic normal exposure. So this is 0 EV normal exposure. Plus and plus 1 EV plus 1 stop of exposure, the GoPro 12. Plus 1 stop of overexposed 1 stop, the GoPro 12. Overexposed 1 stop, GoPro 12 is a little bit clipping the highlight. Overexposed 1 stop, GoPro 12 is already clipping the highlight. Over 2 stop of light, Mission 1 Pro also clipped the highlight. This is overexposed 3 stops just for fun. Underexposed. Next, we're going to test the dynamic range with high log gamma. Gamut. It's called gamut or gamma. Hybrid log gamma. Hybrid log gamma. Okay, this is hybrid log gamma. Hybrid log gamma. Next, we're going to test the hybrid log gamma on. Next, we're going to test the hybrid log gamma on the Mission 1 Pro. Next, we're going to test the dynamic range with hybrid log gamma 4K 30 frame per second on the Mission 1 Pro. Why no GoPro 12? Because if we set hybrid log gamma on 12, because if we set hybrid log gamma on, because if we set hybrid, because Because if we set hybrid log gamma on GoPro 12, none of the exposure settings we can none of the exposure we can set it manually. No ISO, no shutter speed, no EV control. So it's basically useless information in this test. Hybrid log gamma. Okay, overexposed 3-stop is clip in. Overexposed 2-stop also clip in highlight. Overexposed 2-stop slightly clip in the highlight. Overexposed 1-stop looks good. Overexposed 1-stop overexposed 1-stop have all the details captured. Overexposed 1-stop looks perfect. So this is the zero EV exposure. Underexposed 1-stop. Underexposed 1-stop looks okay. Underexposed 3-stop. Underexposed 1 stop, underexposed 2 stop, underexposed 3 stop. And underexposed 4 stop. The black point, the shadow is a little bit clipping. Underexposed 4 stop, the shadow is a little bit clipping. Underexposed 5 stop, everything just fall apart. Next, next, hybrid log gamma. Next, hybrid log gamma with all the same settings. Next, hybrid log gamma with 8K 30 frame per second. Max resolution on the Mission 1 Pro. So underexposed 5 stop. Underexposed 5 stop looks terrible. 4 stop. 3 stop. 2 stop. Underexposed 3 stop. Still looks horrible. Underexposed 2 stop. Still looks horrible in the shadow. Underexposed 1 stop. Finally, if we add a little bit noise reduction in post, underexposed 1 stop, if we add a little bit underexposed 1 stop, underexposed 1 stop, if we add some noise reduction in post, it's kind of usable. This is 0 EV normal exposure. One stop overexposed. Two stop overexposed. Something is a little bit overexposed 2 stop. Overexposed 2 stop. The highlight is a little bit overexposed 2 stop. The highlight is already clipping. And this is overexposed 3 stop just for fun. Next, we are going to test the GP. Next, we're going to test the GP log and GP log 2. Next, we're going to test the GP log and GP log 2. So next we're going to test the GP log on the GoPro 12 and GP log 2 on the Mission 1 Pro. Both of them are Next, we're going to test the GP log and GP log 2 on both of. Next, we're going to test the GP log on GoPro 12 and GP log 2 on Mission 1 Pro. Both of them are shooting 4K 30 frames per second. So overexposed 3 stop, both of them are clipping. Overexposed 2 stop, both of them are clipping. Overexposed 1 stop, the Mission 1 Pro looks okay. Overexposed 1 stop, Mission 1 Pro have all the highlight details, but the GoPro 12 is still clipping. This is normal exposure. 0, this is 0, this is 0 EV. This is 0 EV with all the highlights and shadow details. Underexposed 1 stop looks good. Underexposed 2 stop. The GoPro 12 already have some weird The GoPro 12 is underexposed 2 stop. The GoPro 12 is already pretty noisy in the shadow and cannot be saved with noise reduction in post. And also we can see some weird flickering in the shadow on the GoPro 12. And also we can see some weird flickering happening in, and we can see some weird and we can see some flickering, and we can see some flickering on the, and also we can see some weird flickering on the GoPro 12 in the shadow part. Underexposed 3 stop, Mission 1's underexposed 3 stop. Underexposed 3 stop, Mission 1 Pro still looks pretty good. Underexposed 4 stop, still pretty good. Underexposed 5 stop, finally. The Mission 1 Pro start to have some weird artifact in the shadow part. And also the shadow part have some and also the shadow part will shift towards, and also the shadow part on the Mission 1 Pro will shift towards magenta. But this is really impressive. Next task, we set both of the camera to maximum resolution. Mine underexposed 5 stop, both of them are totally unusable. Underexposed 4 stop, still unusable. Underexposed 3 stop, still unusable. Underexposed 2 stop, still unusable. Underexposed 1 stop. If you add heavy noise reduction in post, if you add heavy noise reduction in post, both of the camera are pretty. If you add heavy noise reduction in post, both of the camera will. If you add heavy noise reduction in post, both of the camera will look okay. So this is So this is normal exposure. Everything looks good. Overexpose one stop. Overexpose one stop. The GoPro 12 highlight is already clipping. Overexpose two stop. The Mission 1 Pro or overexpose two stop. The Mission 1 Pro start to clip the highlight. And this is overexposed 3 stop just for fun. So the dynamic range test we set the so all the dynamic range tests we set the on the dynamic range test we set both of the camera to dynamic range test we set both of the camera to ISO 100. In the dynamic range test we set the ISO to 100 in all the dynamic. In the dynamic range test we set both of the camera at ISO 100. And that they and we manual control the shutter speed. And we manual control the shutter speed to overexpose and underexpose the image. And we pull all the information back in the post-production software. To see how good both of the to see how good to see how good they can retain to see how good they can retain the highlights to see how good they can retain the highlight information and the shadow information. Next, we're going to do the low light test. Next, we're going to do the low. Next, we're going to test the low light test. Next, we're going to test the low light. Next, low light test. Next, a low light test. Next, low light test, aka ISO test. So at maximum resolution on both the camera. So using maximum resolution on both of the cameras, shooting 30 frames per second using GP log and GP log 2. At ISO 400, the GoPro 12 is already pretty noisy in the shadow part, and you cannot save it. Oh, yes, you can save it. And you can clean it up with some simple noise reduction in post. But at ISO 800, the GoPro 12 is just totally... But at ISO 800, but at ISO 800, the GoPro 12 is totally unusable in the But at ISO 800, the GoPro 12, the shadow information is totally messed up. But at ISO 800, the shadow on the GoPro 12 is totally messed up. ISO 1600, so... ISO 1600, the Mission 1 Pro also reached limit. ISO 1600. What? ISO 1600. ISO 1600, the Mission 1 Pro also needs some heavy noise reduction to ISO 1600, the Mission 1 Pro also need heavy noise reduction to be usable in the shadow part. 3200. So ISO 3200 and 6400 just... So Mission 1 Pro, we can go... So Mission 1 Pro 3200, ISO 3200 on Mission 1 Pro. ISO 3200 on Mission 1 Pro is totally unusable. And also the GoPro 12 can't even go up to 3200 ISO. Next you will see some dramatic. Next you will see some dramatic change in the image quality. The only difference we change is the resolution from 8K set to 4K. The only difference we change is the resolution. We jump to the only change we will be 8K, we set it down to 4K. The only change will be 8K, we set it down to 4K. And suddenly ISO 3200 is kind of usable with heavy noise reduction in post. At ISO 1600, the Mission 1 Pro is already pretty clean. At ISO 1600, the Mission 1 Pro, you can At ISO 1600, At ISO 1600 on the Mission 1 Pro, it's totally ISO 1600 Mission 1 Pro is ISO 1600 the Mission 1 Pro don't even need to add noise reduction in post. So at ISO 800, finally the GoPro 12. At ISO 800, finally GoPro 12, we can add heavy noise reduction to make the shadow information usable. Next, hybrid log gamma 4K 30 frame per second with the next hybrid log gamma low light test. Next hybrid log gamma low light test with 4K 30 frame. Next hybrid log gamma 4K 30 frame per second with next hybrid log gamma low light test 4K 30 frame per second on the Mission 1 Pro. we can keep pushing the ISO. We can keep pushing the ISO until 3200. At ISO 3200, we just need to add slightly add some noise reduction in post to have the user. We just need to slightly add some noise reduction in post to have a usable image. Next, at 8K 30 frame per second, 3200. Next, at 8K 30 frame per second, 3200 ISO is a little bit too noisy, and set the ISO to 1600. We need to add some heavy noise reduction in post to be usable. So heavy noise reduction. At 8K 30 frame per second, ISO 3200, the shadow part will have some magenta color shift. At 1600, we just add some. At 1600, we just add some simple noise reduction to. At ISO 1600, we just add simple noise reduction in post to have a usable image. Okay, next test. Normal. Next test, color flat. Next test, color flat. Next test, flat color profile with maximum resolution on both camera. At ISO 800, GoPro 12, we need to add a little bit noise reduction in post to make a usable image. At ISO 800, GoPro 12, we need to add a little bit noise reduction in post to have an okay image. At ISO 1600, GoPro 12 need to add some. At 1600, GoPro 12 need to add heavy noise reduction in post to have a no. At 1600, GoPro 12 need to add heavy noise reduction in post to have a usable image, and also the shadow part on the GoPro 12 have slightly shift towards magenta. And also the GoPro 12 shadow part is slightly shift towards magenta. At 3200, at ISO 3200, you can add a little bit. At ISO 3200, you can add a little bit noise reduction. At ISO 3200, you can add a little bit noise reduction to have a usable image on the mission. What? GG. What the heck? At ISO 1600, at ISO 3200, at ISO 3200, at ISO 3200, the Mission 1 Pro also needs some noise reduction in post to have a usable image. This is 6400. This is ISO 6400 on both of the camera. Looks horrible. Next, we set. Next, same flat color profile we set it in. Next, we change the resolution down to 4K 30 frames per second. At ISO 6400, the Mission 1 Pro is kind of impressive. We'll just add a little bit. The Mission 1 Pro is kind of impressive. With only little noise reduction in post, we can have a really clean and usable image. At ISO 6400, we just need to add a little bit noise reduction in post to have a usable image on the Mission 1 Pro. This is really impressive. At 3200, we don't even need to add noise reduction on the Mission 1 Pro. It already looks stunning. At 1600, finally we have usable image on the GoPro 12 with some heavy noise reduction. Yep. So that's it. Yep, so that's it. The color. Next, the lens flare test. Next, the lens flare test. So with the hood, without the hoods. Next, the lens flare test. Without the hoods, both of the camera have beautiful lens flare. But with the included hood on the Mission 1 Pro, we have better control with the we have better control of the high we have better control of the bright light source out of the frame. We have better control we have better we have slightly better control we have slightly better control we have slightly better control of the lens flare out. We have slightly better control. We have slightly better control if there is a very bright light source out of the frame shooting directly into the lens. So both of the camera basically have the same lens flare characteristic. So if you don't have any problem with the GoPro 12, 11, so if you don't have any problem with the 11, 12, 13 GoPro, so if you don't have any problem with the old 11, 12, 13 GoPro, I don't think you really need the lens hood. I don't think you really need the lens hood on the Mission 1 Pro. I don't think you will have any problem. I don't think you will have any problem. I don't think you will have any problem without the lens hood. This is the fast charging. This is the fast charging light. This is the fast charging time lapse from 0 to 100%. This is fast charging. This is fast charging. So this is the fast charging time lapse with the. This is the fast charging time lapse. This is the fast charging time lapse from 0 to 100%. So basically 25 minutes of fast charge and 30 minutes of slow charge. And 30 minutes of slow charge to go up to 100%. This is the low light mode. So we're going to share with you guys some real world footage. Now we're going to share with you guys some real world footage in some. Next, we're going to share with you guys some real world footage over here. So first, I'm just really curious about the low light capability. So yeah, if you are shooting low light, just stick with 4K resolution. Oh, yeah. If you're shooting low light, if you're in low light environment, just shoot 4K image on all the. If you're shooting in low light environment, just shoot 4K on all the GoPro cameras. Because if you are shooting 4K, the camera is doing some kind of pixel merging. It's like a hardware baked in noise reduction stuff. If you shoot max resolution on both of the camera, it's more like a no processing native image raw noise pattern. so image will look really noisy. So the image will look really noisy. So the image will look really noisy. So the image will look really noisy without any noise reduction. What? But both of the GoPro camera shooting at 4K, but both of the GoPro camera shooting at 4K, we have 1 second keyframe. It's kind of too long. It's like 30, because I'm shooting 4K 30. So it's like, because I'm shooting 4K 30 frame. After 30 frame, we only have 1 real frame. After 30 frame, in 30 frame, we only have 1 real frame, the full image, no matter the movement. So I hope we have some lab settings. So I hope we can have some lab settings to lower the number. I found like 5 to 10 frames per keyframe will have the best balance between. I found 5 to 10 keyframes will have the best balance between quality and efficiency. Because right now the GoPro Labs only have IFR, because in GoPro Labs we only have IFRM. It's like all iframe settings. But we don't have enough bitrate. This settings let every single this settings make every frame to be a keyframe. So this settings make every frame to be a keyframe. So every single frame is a real image. Every single frame is a real image. But we don't have enough bitrate to have. But because of the bitrate on these small cameras, we don't have enough bitrate to improve the image quality with this all I settings. So after all these tasks, so after all these dynamic range and after all these dynamic range and ISO tests, if you want the best dynamic range, the max dynamic range settings will be 4K using GP Log 2 on the Mission Pro. the max dynamic range settings will be 4K GP log 2 on the Mission 1 Pro. And 4K normal flat color profile on the old GoPro 11, 12, 13. And because most information is in the shadow area, and because most settings, and because most information in the and because most information are captured inside the shadow area. Lower the exposure value to -1 or -1.5 stop to preserve the highlight details. Lower the exposure value to -1 or -1.5 stop to improve. Lower the exposure value to -1. Lower the exposure value to -1 or -1.5 to preserve all the highlight details. And boost the shadow in post will have the most dynamic range. If you are shooting in low light environment, just shoot 4K on both of them. If you are going to shoot in low light environment, just shoot 4K. If you are going to shoot low light image, if you are going to shoot in low light environment, just shoot 4K normal flat color profile on both of the camera. Yeah, so, and also if you want best image quality, so if you want overall best image quality, just shoot in 4K. Don't act like. If you want overall best image quality, just shoot 4K on all the GoPro cameras. 8K or 5.3K are only for daylight with max. 8K or 5.3K are only for daytime. That you really want to zoom into something. 8K, shooting 8K and 5.3K. Shooting 8K or 5.3K only for daytime. Only use 8K or 5.3K in daytime. That you really want to punch in or reframe your shot. And about the ISO settings, I will set the max ISO settings. In the max ISO settings, I will set 3200 on the Mission 1 Pro and ISO 800 on the GoPro 11, 12, and 13. So low light in normal color profile. So low light. Yep, so we are going. Yeah, so this is the real world footage we're going. Yeah, real world footage time. So we're going to test the low light mode. So right now, all the camera are in flat color profile 4K 30 without any low light mode. And also I just put my smartphone. And also I just put the smartphone image. And also I just put and also I just put my smartphone image just for fun. And also I just put in my and also I just put the smartphone image in here just for fun. So you can see Mission 1 Pro is actually really good in low light even without activating the low light mode. 4K 30 on the Mission 1 Pro is ready. So as you can see, 4K 30 on the Mission 1 Pro in low light environment is already really good. You just need to add a little. You just need to add tiny touch of noise reduction in post. Oh, and this part, and this part, in this area is totally. In this area is crazy dark. I can't even see anything with my. In this part, I remember. In this area is totally. In this area is really dark. I can't see anything. In this area is really dark. I really can't see anything with my eyeballs. So in real world, the GoPro 12 is basically what my eyeballs sees. I can't even see in the dark. But the Mission 1 Pro is kind of impressive. But the Mission 1 Pro with 4K 30, you can capture the information your eyeballs can't even see. And we turn it out, and we turn around, This is a really challenging environment. And in this area is really challenging because in this area it's really challenging because we have really high. In this area is pretty challenging for most of the camera. We have bright light source. In this area is really challenging for cameras to capture all the shadow details and the highlight. With a little noise reduction on the GoPro 12, 6. Nope. The GoPro 12 already have some weird magenta color shift inside the shadow part. The GoPro 12 already have some weird The GoPro 12 already have some weird magenta color shift in this. The GoPro 12 already have some weird magenta color shift in the shadow part. The Mission 1 Pro, the Mission 1 Pro, the Mission 1 Pro just looks way better. So much better. The Mission 1 Pro just looks so much better. Next, we just turn on low light mode and just compare these two cameras. Next, we turn on low light mode and I'm kind of disappointed. No, expected. Next, we just turn on the low light mode on the Mission 1 Pro. And this is the result. So basically low light mode is just boosting the ISO to maximum. So low light mode is basically cranking up the ISO to maximum, as high as 20,000 ISO. So low light mode is basically using crazy high ISO. In low light mode, it's basically using crazy high ISO paired with crazy high noise reduction to remove all the noise in your image. So basically low light mode is to you. So basically low light mode is using crazy high ISO. So basically low light mode is using crazy high ISO paired with crazy high noise reduction to remove all the noise in your image. So you have zero control. So you have zero control. So you have zero control of the image. So you have zero control of your noise. So you have zero control over your image in low light mode. It basically wipes out all the shadow details. It basically wipes out all the shadow details. It basically wipe out all the shadow details. It basically wipe out all the shadow details. it basically wipe out all the shadow details, just like the Insta360 cameras and also the DJI cameras. Wipe out all the shadow. Wipe out all the noise and also wipe out all the details. So it's like blurry. It's like blurry mess. So it's like blurry mess. I really don't like this. So it's like blurry mess. Totally. So it's like blurry. So it's totally like mashed potato. So it's like so 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 in low light. So in low light, it's just like mashed potato. So in low light environment, these so in low light mode. So in low light mode, basically turns your image quality into mashed potato. Yeah, so all the camera makes so all the camera makers Insta360 Ace Pro, DJI Action, Insta360 Ace Pro, DJI DJI Action, and also GoPro. If you don't, I don't know who the heck those influencer. I don't know who the heck those influencer just brainwashed. No, nope, no, no. Jesus Christ. Basically, they're all doing the same. Yep, so it's a cool mode. Yes, it's a cool mode. Yep, low light mode is a cool mode to capture. Yep, so low light mode is pretty. Yep, so low light mode is a cool mode that you can capture something you can't even see with your eyeballs. Okay, so GoPro 12. Okay, so compared GoPro 12. Okay, so 4K 30, both shooting 4K 30 with the GoPro 12 and also the Mission 1 Pro with low light mode on. You can see GoPro what? In this area, low light mode looks so good on the Mission 1 Pro. Although we lose so much details. Yeah. But the GoPro 12 is just totally. But the GoPro 12. But the GoPro 12 is totally. But the GoPro 12, the shadow is clipping. And the shadow information is mixed with magenta color shift and horrible noise pattern. You can't even fix it with noise reduction. In this area, I just. In this area, I just want to try out the 8K 30 frame per second. In this area, I just want to test out the 8K 30 frame per second on the Mission 1 Pro. Can you see any difference? In this area, we just maxed out both camera. In this area, we just maxed out both camera resolution. Walk into almost pitch black environment. So Mission 1 Pro is still kind of usable. The GoPro 12 is totally covered with crazy noise. Let's tune down. In this area, we tune down both of the camera to 4K 30. Both of them looks way better than the max resolution. and this is the static shot, and this is the static shot at, and this is the static shot at 4K 30 frames per second. Next, about the shutter speed. Next, about the motion blur problem Next, about the shutter speed. Next, about the shutter speed. Next, about the shutter speed of the. Next, about the shutter speed I just mentioned in the GoPro lab settings. The EXPT2 should be 90-degree shutter angle. But the Mission 1 Pro settings is kind of broken because it will go as low as 1/50th second. 150. 1/50th second. What?
1/50th.
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 It will go. It will go. It will go as low as 1/50th of a second. So in these areas, I just found out. So in these areas, the image details are crushed. So in these areas, the image details are all crushed by the crazy motion blur. All destroyed by the motion blur. So in these areas, all the image are destroyed. All the image are destroyed by the crazy motion blur. So in the camera settings, it's set. So on the Mission 1 Pro, we have a settings called motion blur, and I'm set to adaptive. So I just said it will go down as slow as 216 shutter angle, 216 shutter angle. And if I set the motion blur to max blur reduction, the shutter angle, it only go as slow as 100 shutter angle. It only go as slow as 100-degree shutter angle. Yeah, so the EXPT settings is broken in the GoPro lab. So the EXPT settings is broken in the GoPro lab. And also we have settings if we set the shutter. So why not set the shutter speed? So why not set the shutter speed to the shutter speed range? So why not So we also have the shutter speed range settings, but if we use the shutter speed range settings, we can't even control the exposure value. So it's not working for me. So right now I only can use the max blur reduction. So right now I only can use the max blur reduction inside this Mission 1 camera. Hope they can fix the EXPT settings in the next GoPro Labs firmware. Because right now everything just looks blurry. 4K 30. Next, in low light environment. Next, in low light environment, this is without any low light special mode. It's just pure 4K 30 frame per second. It looks really good on the Mission 1 Pro. But after we turn on low light mode, but after we turn on low light mode on the Mission 1 Pro, the noise reduction just totally destroyed the image. All the details are gone. Everything are just blurry mess. So I would recommend use low light mode if you really need to. Because using normal 4K 30 because using normal 4K 30 will capture more information in your precious
Precious.
Precious. Yeah, precious. Because shooting 4K 30 will capture more information in your precious memory.
Precious.
Yes, precious. After 15 minutes, next overheating problem. Next overheating problem, I don't think it's really an issue anymore. Next overheating problem, I don't think it's a problem anymore. Next overheating problem, I don't think it's a problem anymore. After 15 minutes of recording, both of the camera, it's really hard to overheat the Mission 1 Pro. Both of the camera, the hotspot will be Both of the camera, the hotspot will be around the camera lens module. And also the bottom mounting position. And also the bottom mounting position. Yeah, more 4K 30 frame per second footage in low light. 4K 30 frame per second in bright daylight. In the end, and I must show you some footage. And I must show you some cool footage with the crazy slow motion camera. And next I must show you some crazy slow motion footage captured with this camera. Because it's ultra wide angle. It's really easy to capture. And paired with 10 seconds buffer. It's really easy to capture those stunning, interesting, slow motion footage, slow motion memories. I really can't wait to buy the iOS version of the GoPro Mission 1. I can't wait. I can't wait. I can't wait to buy the. I can't wait to try the. I can't wait to try the iOS version of the Mission 1 Pro. Just because of this. Just because of the Just because of the slow motion capabilities, it's just totally worth. It's totally worth any. It's just totally worth the money. Yep. Yep. Cut, cut, cut.